Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast in partnership with Vertical Valor magazine. This three-part series of the Hangar Z Podcast was recorded on location in Texas at the McKinney Air Center as part of the 2025 Blades of Valor Road Tour.
Bad guy is shot multiple times, but he is the 1%er that was not going to jail and was going to kill as many cops as he could before he died. And so he goes back around, kind of gets his bearings again, and then re-engages, coming back out, screaming profanities, what I got from the K9 team.
This year, our journey takes us to 4 agencies across 4 states, showcasing their exceptional work through print, video, and right here in the podcast. The Blades of Valor Tour wouldn't be possible without the support of Airbus and must-see flight suits. We also have to thank Ken and Connie Pyatt from Sky Helicopters for their hospitality and for making the air-to-air photo flight possible. If you're in the Garland area looking for flight training or an aerial tour of the Dallas Metroplex, make sure you look to Sky Helicopters. For more information, go to skyhelicopters.com. The Texas Department of Public Safety Aircraft Operations Division has an outstanding program supporting multi-mission public safety aviation operations throughout the great state of Texas. During this conversation, we're privileged to speak with Texas DPS Assistant Chief Marcus Tomerlin, Captain Saben Emery, and Lieutenant Clay Lacey. The conversations we have highlight the importance of solid leadership and a great unit culture, the value of internal and external training, and the crucial role of internal marketing, such as detailed activity reports and video documentation, which showcase the agency's achievements, justify operations, and secure funding for the aircraft division. For more about our visit to Texas DPS, be sure to check out the Brent Bundy article in Vertical Valor and check out the incredible video footage captured by Lloyd Horgan on the Vertical Magazine YouTube channel. Thank you to our sponsors, Metro Aviation, Shotover, and Onboard Systems Hoist and Winch.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z Podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like you're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, through the shotgun, through something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
It's time for your Heli Life giveaway buzzword. Listen up and remember this word because you'll need it to enter for a chance to win exclusive Heli Life gear. Ready? This episode's buzzword is vortex. Visit contest.verticalhelicast.com to enter the buzzword.
Hey, welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast. I'm your host, John Gray, coming to you from the Blades of Valor Tour 2025, hanging out with our good friends at Texas DPS. And we're starting this tour on the heels of Verticon, which was in Dallas this year. Had an amazing show. I think doing the Blades of Valor Tour on the heels of Verticon probably wasn't the best idea. But I mean, we're here in Dallas, and we thought, why would we come here and not do this with you guys? So thank you for your hospitality at Verticon. I know you guys had all kinds of visitors, all kinds of activity going on this week. So you've been busy already as you're going into this, and now you've opened the doors for Vertical to come in and do this Blades of Valor tour. And, you know, we've talked about this at length, but our goal with these tours is to come in and do a full multimedia, essentially promotion of the good work you guys are doing here in Texas. And there's no shortage of good work you guys are doing down here. It's always impressive to hear about your operations, the Texas Air Force, all the cool stuff you guys are doing. So thank you guys again for your hospitality during the week, and then for opening your doors and taking care of us here. I always am humbled when people let us in their house, and you guys have done that. So thank you. To join us in this conversation in this Blades of Valor tour for the second year in a row is Commander Jack Shanley. How you doing, sir?
This commander stuff has got to go away because everybody knows I was retired at the lowest rank you can retire at in LA, and yet John calls me commander. So that's okay, as long as it gets push-ups out of Quinny. I'll stick with that. But I'll just echo a little bit what you said already, in that it's been a good week, and VAI was great, and we're really thankful that Texas DPS has invited us in. And we're here at the McKinney Air Center, an FBO right across the street from their facility, and they're very nice and helping us out this morning and getting a nice background for us and a nice room and with these 3 great guys that we're going to talk to. So I'm really thankful to be here. This will be a good tour.
what's cool is we talk about, how small the community is a lot of times and how important it is to go to these events like AppsCon and Verticon and the networking that takes place. So we come in and we're chatting, and Saben, who's the captain here, we're like, hey, you look familiar. And we realize that we hung out before together and we had a great time. We don't need to go into the details of that great time, but I mean, it just illustrates again how cool our community is and how awesome, those networking, those partnerships are that you build when you go to those types of things.
Yeah.
So I think having said that, we probably should introduce you. Can you introduce yourself and just let us know what your current role and assignment is?
Yeah. So I'm Saben Emery. I'm the captain of the North Texas Air Crew based here in McKinney. Got 10 phenomenal guys with us and 5 pilots, 5 tactical flight officers. So
that's awesome. Yeah. That I guess it was probably a couple nights, but that one night in particular in Savannah was pretty fun. Yeah. You guys are really good about, as an agency, sending folks out to conferences and training. Can you talk about some of the support that your agency offers you guys to do that?
Yeah, I think we get in talking to Clay, because he has so much exposure all over everywhere. We easily forget how fortunate that we are to be so well supported and well funded and allowed to have opportunities to travel and interact and have an ear to the ground to the industry all over the nation to get input on how to do things better and what's Ontario doing, what's LAPD doing. It speaks volumes to how we're able to do so well at what we do because we're all able to get that exposure.
What's cool about that is, being as large as you guys are, having the reps, and we talk about how important reps are when it comes to call volume. You only get good through repetition and doing things, and you guys get that rep through all the activity you've got here. But you don't rest on that. You guys are still pushing guys, hey, go get more training. It looks like most of your folks are pushing for their ATP. It seems like that's something that's encouraged by your agency. And most agencies, if you're getting an ATP, it's because you're paying for it out of your own pocket. Yeah. You guys are backed by your agency to go out and get whatever ratings you want. And that is so unusual. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So anyways, happy to hang out with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. You too.
It's always a blast. Talking about small worlds again, when I was in Ontario, we'd just come back from a patrol flight, come back to the hangar, and Sergeant Widener, he's with CNC Technologies. He's retired now, and he's got Hangar Y, which is right next door to Hangar Z. Yeah. And his hangar door is open, and there's a bunch of activity in there. So we pop our heads in there, and one of our guests is there. And we're talking today, and he's like, I think we know each other. And I'm like, I think we do too. And it turns out he was at Hangar Y as we had gotten back from that patrol flight, and we sat back and talked with you guys. There was like 6 or 7 of you guys, wasn't there?
4 when I recall, but okay. we might have met some folks and then stumbled over to y'all's hangar. So, yeah.
But it was really cool, seeing you guys there, and then here we are visiting you guys. You got to come by the Vertical booth and introduce yourself during Verticon. It was cool seeing you. So thanks for inviting us in, and if you could, just introduce yourself and let us know what your current role is.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Mark Tomerlin, the Assistant Chief Pilot for the Aircraft Operations Division for Texas DPS. I used to be up here in the North Texas area for about 10 years, and then for the past year and a half, I've been down in Austin at our headquarters hangar.
So you guys have a bunch of different, remote offices, if you want to call them that. But Austin's the headquarters for your operation. What does that look like as far as that being the headquarters?
Well, it's a centralized location, geographically in Texas, and it's one of 13 now across the state. And we have a centralized maintenance facility there, TxDOT Flight Services, and they're a partner of ours in our maintenance operation. And it's where a lot of our training staff are located. It's where our several aircraft. It's an administrative station, more so than the other 12 are. We do have with any state capital, you have a lot of legislators, and you've got the governor, and you've just got a lot of VIP government officials, and that's a big part of our job in Austin, as opposed to search and rescue and criminal law enforcement the other 12 stations do.
We talked about leadership offline before we started this recording, and And you guys, that's one of the things you guys do well. You've got this culture, this leadership culture within your program that I think is a model for our community. So I'm really interested as we go to dig into that culture, which you've promoted. You're a part of that culture. So I'm excited to hear your insights on that leadership, because it's interesting as we talk to folks across the country and throughout the world. That's the one thing that's been striking, is everybody's dealing with leadership issues. It's not just one agency. It's not isolated to any one portion of the country or one city. It is everywhere, and when we find somebody who's figured out a way to do it right, we want to figure out what that recipe is and try and promote that and find solutions for people that are having problems, so excited to go into that. Before we move on to Clay, Clay's promised he's not talking, but I'm going to get him to talk.
We'll never get the microphone back once he starts.
Going back to all your satellite locations, I know just having one hangar is hard enough logistically to try and support that one hangar with parts and human, the resources part, staffing, all those things. So can you talk about, from your perspective as a leader, having to support all those different locations throughout the state? How difficult is that for you, and how do you work around that?
Historically, it was a challenge. TxDOT was our primary maintenance facility. And, I remember when I first started as a tactical flight officer in 2008, I recall every ship going to Austin for maintenance. And that was probably 10 aircraft less than what we have today. And the flight time was probably 10,000 hours less than what we have today, and it was a challenge. I remember one of the supervisors up in North Texas was very heavily involved in the maintenance, and he was strategically timing flight time throughout the state so he could coordinate this ship in at this day and the next ship in the next day going to Austin. And we have completely outgrown a centralized maintenance operation, and we have now outsourced to 9 different vendors across Texas and Louisiana to help us keep up with our we fly 13 to 14,000 hours a year across the state with our fleet, and I guarantee it would be more than that if we weren't held back by maintenance intervals. But we've had to outsource, and we're still struggling with we want to bring it back inside the state, that DPS and TxDOT as much as we can, but our mission has just grown so much the past 10 years that that is our biggest challenge. Hiring people, obviously living on the border is not it's not the best place people want to end up in their career unless you're from there. And, of all of our border stations, several of them are revolving doors. We try to hire tactical flight officers and pilots that are kind of from the area. That'll help with retention a little bit. But, like with a lot of big departments, and especially Texas, if you want to promote, you're going to promote where the opening is. That's a recruiting challenge. That's a retention challenge. We miss out on some good employees because they don't want to move.
You brought up something I want to talk about briefly. Contracting with other agencies to supply TFOs. Now, that's a novel idea. I love that you guys can supplement your own personnel with folks, like Clay did, from other agencies. Can you talk about the benefit that offers to DPS and kind of why you guys do that and what you like about it?
So yeah, it started with Clay back in 1950.
This is what I have to deal with.
So Clay and Matt, man, they were the first tactical flight officers, and they did great things. And he is the only reason I'm here. He proved that a TFO is absolutely needed in a successful airborne law enforcement unit. We went years picking up a trooper at 1 a.m. on the side of the road and giving him a 30-second crash course on the camera and say, we'll be there in 2 minutes, figure it out, start searching. That's absolutely the most ineffective way to find bad guys or missing people. So, once we ramped up our TFO, program, it took off just with Clay leading the way and training us how to how to work all this equipment. But we also recognize that, one of the reasons Clay was so good, because he came from a city agency that dealt with perimeters and pursuits and working with canines. And, I was a trooper for 4 years, and I was 100 miles an hour all the time. And I loved the job. But when I became a TFO, and, our main customer, I went to Houston, and our main customers were the cities and the constables and, just the suburban areas of Houston. And my experience was highway interdiction and working crashes and arresting DWIs. And I didn't know a lot about perimeters and canine searches. And, Clay taught me everything during the TFO school that I needed to know to operate like that. And we have found as a department, hiring troopers with little city experience, you got a lot of work to do to get them up to speed to work with the customers that we work with 90% of the time. And some of these cities that provide these tactical flight officers to us, you can tell the difference when they come from a city or county policing background. They can jump in that TFO seat a lot quicker than some of our troopers we hire can. So, and with every agency, there's staffing issues. So that is obviously another benefit when sometimes we struggle to get full-time employees and these cities step up. And nobody likes giving up an FTE, but I feel like our aircraft division has shown the benefit of what we can do when we're responding to your city. And we don't guarantee preferential treatment to any city that wants to give us an employee, but as Clay back in the day, he's got that Garland PD handheld radio with him all the time, and he knows his officers when their voice changes just running a license plate. And I remember sitting in the hangar with Clay, and I know this guy. He just ran a 28. He doesn't run 28s unless he's about to get in a pursuit. And that is a huge benefit because you're getting an officer that knows his agency, knows the guys, and he will let you know when to get that helicopter off the ground. And, it's got a lot of benefits to it.
Whether your mission is saving lives or servicing high-value assets, Onboard Systems Hoist stays ready to assist. Features such as single-point payout reduce the potential for hoist-induced load swings, enhancing overall safety. For more information, go to hoist-winch.onboardsystems.com. Yeah, on a state level, you're not going to be able to pick that up because it's just too many people to keep track of, right? Having that intimate knowledge of the agency you're working with, that's gold. I hadn't thought about it, and we've talked about it at length, Clay. Your move and how you did that. But I'd want to touch on what you brought up with training. We got Clay and Jack here, two of the most influential instructors in the world. As far as tactics go, and it's really humbling to sit here and talk to them. And I always laugh when comments like what you just said come up because they're so humble. I love it, but it's 100% true. They've trained the air crews throughout the world. And I bring up how many criminals you think have been arrested as a result of the tactics they've taught. It's amazing. I love it. So we're gonna actually have an opportunity to have them teach a class together for the first time at the ECHO conference this year, and I'm excited to I'm supposed to be facilitating the class, but I think I'm going to find myself just sitting in the class to listen to a lot of it. It's going to be exciting. So Jack, I'll pass this over to you for a minute and get some of the insights you might have on what's come up and what we're talking about.
Well, one of the things I'd like to go back, Mark, and all three of you can chime in on this, but it fascinates me that there was one maintenance facility. When did that change? When you started branching out and where you didn't have to take all the aircraft to Austin for maintenance or for 100 hour? When did that change?
I've only been with the division since 2008. And, the first couple of years, you don't really know what's going on. But I do remember the emails coming out of one of the former guys really trying to structure the maintenance cycles. Yeah. I feel like when we added the 6 helicopters in 07, 08, and then we brought on, some 3 extra fixed wing, and then the border really ramped up in 2010, 11 is when we were just, that's when I recall the higher ups getting maintenance contracts throughout the state. Metro Aviation they've historically been a completion vendor, but I kind of recall them coming on as maintenance as well.
Yeah.
They do good work on kind of putting our ships together. Maybe let's see if they can maintenance some.
Right.
But that was kind of the time where we really changed direction. Before 2007, what I recall, most of the stations around the state wore a suit to work, and they officed at the regional headquarters.
Wow.
And when a call came, they'd drive to the hangar and change into their flight suit, pre-flight the helicopter, roll it out, and launch. So we don't have a station like that anymore, and it's a very proactive agency. So I think during that time it changed. Clay could probably have a little better memory prior to 2007 than I would, but I do recall the significant change, especially when border ramped up. And
I just think about the planning that would require. I mean, just for us, we were, and flying around, and we said, this ship has 1.5 left before 100 hour. You have to plan ahead a lot more than that than we did, because you may be at a part of the state that it's going to take you that long just to get to the maintenance facility, So the planning and the coordination with maintenance and pilots and air crews, that's really interesting that it was like that, and it caught me when you said that. I can't imagine how many times I would have overflown a Hobbs meter because I didn't plan properly. We got involved in this. The next thing you know, you can't make it to Austin. Because, for those of you that know, Texas is pretty big. I mean, there's a lot of ground. And weather, the weather can be one thing here and completely different in Austin and completely different by the border. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, 5 or 10 knot headwind make 30 difference coming from El Paso to Austin.
Yeah, you're planning, not only you're planning maintenance, you're planning a long cross country, just for the maintenance. So it's great that as you expanded this fleet, that the maintenance part of the side of it had to evolve dramatically, and now it's so much easier. And all that flight time in shuttling is now fighting crime or doing a rescue, instead of saying, maybe you even know the number. I'd be curious to know what, before it went to localized maintenance, what the flight time a year was just shuttling. And I'll bet it was.
We probably don't want to know that number.
You probably don't. But thinking back, it's like you think back to that. Well, that's a lot of hours that we could have been doing our mission. Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah. That just caught me, and I just loved everything you just said about a Garland officer coming up here and setting the trend and getting that going. And
absolutely.
How fortunate DPS was to have that guy right there do that, and that set the model. And next thing you know, here we are. That's fantastic.
I saw you. You were about to say something. And I'm looking at the clock. It's 20 minutes in, and Clay hasn't said a word. So I have to. First, I have
to. Record.
I have to introduce you first, Clay. Thank you for the hospitality. We called you up and said, hey, Clay, we'd like to come visit and propose this idea to you. And it was, we'll open the doors for you. Very hospitable. You're a good friend. Thank you for that. Thank you for letting us in and all the work you put into to getting us here. So thank you, Clay. And welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast for the 300th time.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. And my name's Clay Lacey. I'm a lieutenant pilot with Texas DPS. I've been a police officer here in Texas for about 30 years and been flying in some capacity with the state for about 24 now. And I'm blessed every day to get to do what I do. And I'm particularly excited about this because these two men here are two of the very best leaders I've ever worked for. In a 30-year law enforcement career in a big city, in a state organization, these are some of my best friends, but they're also just tremendous leaders. And that's what sets the stage for the success of the organization. And so I'm excited they're here. Jack, I won't beat up the story, but I was paying my own way as a Garland cop to go to APSA to try to figure this stuff out and get good. And a lot of people didn't treat me well. I thought I was stupid doing all that. Jack always treated me real well. And when I take his classes, I learn something. I've probably been through them 10 times. I still learn something every time. So it's always good to be here with you. You are a mentor of mine. John, you've changed the industry. this Hangar Z Podcast and this dissemination of information. That's how our young generation takes in information. They're not sitting there waiting on a magazine that comes out every 3 or 4 months. Always, that's immediate. It's on the phone, and you're changing the game by bringing people together to share this information that when we were young you couldn't have shared all that. But what I was laughing at is the maintenance. It wasn't uncommon years ago to fly a Bell 206 Jet Ranger 4 hours from Northwest, Panhandle, Texas to Austin for a 100-hour. And so you're putting 8 hours on it, just getting it there. And now
10% of its life for that cycle.
And the thing about that is, though, we were doing 100-hour on those about every 4, 5, 6 months. We're doing 100 hours in these stations 14 to 21 days sometimes. The guys out there working on them right now, So Mark hit it on the head about kind of how the maintenance has gone, but these are phenomenal resources here. These 2 men that are here are phenomenal people and phenomenal leaders, and I'm just happy to be on with them.
Yeah, again, going back to the theme of leadership, it's an issue everywhere. I know in your travels, Clay, you've had opportunity to talk to people all over the world. From your perspective, what do you think some of the major problems are worldwide with leadership?
So I'll preface this by saying I'm not good at it. And I tried it out. I did the acting job, and some of that's because of what we call, the Peter principle, where you've done well in all these areas, and everyone kind of assumes because you've done well in these areas, you'll do well here, but it's a different thing. And I just wasn't good at it. Not good at building consensus, not good with delivery, not good with being too emotionally reactive to things. And so I finally just reconciled that, that's not what I'm called to do. I'm going to continue to try to mentor these young men and women in our division to catch bad guys, and leadership doesn't have anything to do with the rank. You can be a leader in a duty station and not be a supervisor. So I took that on. Now, the biggest problem, it's the classic law enforcement problem that I think Texas DPS, by defining the mission to protect and serve the citizens of Texas, the core values, integrity, excellence, accountability, teamwork, these aren't just things we wear on our sleeves. These are things that are super important. And, the old, take a test over 5 books, and then Monday you're supervising people, and then we send you to supervisor school. I always say Friday you could come into some organizations and say you hate everyone in the organization and take a test that afternoon and be supervising them Monday. And then we send those people to leadership schools. DPS, through the leaders we have here, have recognized the importance of identifying leaders early in their career. Saben's doing this all the time, and providing materials, providing books. Hey, you ought to take a look at this. You might consider this. Go to this school to identify future leaders, get them the training they need before they're ever in that leadership role. It's FBI LEDA, whatever it is. I mean, I can go to any leadership training I want to. They authorize it. And then promote them, and then evaluate them. And I think that model works better than some people that get thrust into the role. It was hard for me to not continue to promote, because everybody's like, you're like this bigwig. Why don't you just, terrible at it. Just didn't do good. And it was humbling to me, but I'm thankful that there are men like these that will do those things. So I think that's the problem in the industry right now, is identifying, training them, then promoting them, versus read 5 books, take a test. I always say that's the fairest way to do it, but it's not the best. And so I think Texas DPS as an organization has done a tremendous amount to get that process better across the entire department, not just our division.
Yeah, we talk about exactly what you just said all the time. The reactive cultivation of a leader is the wrong approach, in my opinion. I love what you're doing. Can you talk about how you're identifying some of these young folks that you think might be good leaders, and how you kind of cultivate that leadership mentality once you've identified that?
I think, well, first and foremost, Mark gave me a phenomenal blueprint. None of this did I invent overnight. I immediately upon when I decided that this was something I wanted to pursue, I just became a student of leadership at all levels, and tried to figure out how to best help my guys, not help myself, but help my guys get whatever they need, however they need it. And with that, you notice certain people excel in different things, whether it's flight instruction or it's TFO instruction, or, as simple as something as covering shifts or being there for somebody or helping somebody move. You just see these qualities in people, how they react to stressful situations. Maybe it's in the cockpit, maybe it's in the hangar. You evaluate them as they navigate those things, and then you kind of identify that guy may be good for that. And then, as Clay said, you just say, hey, why don't you think about taking this course, and then see how they react to it. Some of them may say, I don't want to do that. That's not for me. And others will jump right in head first and be all about it. And then, next week, next month, I might need a day off. Like, hey, man, you got it while I'm out. And then you evaluate, how the guys felt about that day or that week and how did it go. And it's a pretty simple process. There's not a whole lot to it, but.
It's interesting. I hear that a lot from people that are doing leadership well. They always say it's common sense and it's simple. And in those words, it is in your mind, right? But it's so uncommon. It's interesting. In some ways it is common sense. But I think applying that is a whole different deal, right? And you guys have figured out not just a philosophical way to talk about it, but you guys are actually applying that within the ranks of your department, and it shows. That's huge. Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned air medical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Well, you have a lot of really high achievers. So one of the big things Mark always gave us was your left and right lateral limits and just get the job done. I'm not here to micromanage you. There's just no need in that, and you'll see these guys thrive in that environment.
When it comes to the recruitment and retention issues, we talked about this with Kevin Gallagher quite a bit. I think a lot of our efforts should be focused more on the retaining of good employees through the development process you're talking about. I think if you challenge these folks and give them opportunities to do things they really want to do, why would they want to leave? Especially given the resources that you guys have. I mean, I feel like every time I get done talking to Clay or one of you guys, I want to come apply, even though, you develop this culture, and I was like, I want to be a part of that. You've done a really good job of doing that. I think if more agencies focused on creating what you guys have done, a lot of the recruitment issues would subside. So I know, Jack, I know you have some thoughts here, so I'm gonna pass it over.
I'm going to put Clay on the spot, then I'm going to put Saben and Mark on the spot too. Now, I know you're friends, but they're also, supervision and all that. And you gave them the nicest compliment that you could by saying they're the two best leaders you've worked for in 30 years. What is it? Give me one thing about each of them that makes you feel that way. I know you could give me a long list. Believe me, Clay could give me a long list, but pick something about Saben and then Mark about what makes them that great leader. And then Saben and Mark, I want you each to respond to it and tell me where'd you get that? And how did that become? Was whatever he's saying, and I don't know what he's going to say. Is it just you? Is that as a human, or is it something you learned, or was it a culture that you developed? So let's start with, what is it about Saben?
So, it's really the same with both of them. We talk about the mental health component of this job and being in it a long time. We had a great friend yesterday in this city. A dog got killed, police canine, while working. Those pile up on you. Over 5 dead cops in Dallas piles up on you. And to have these leaders, and they're both very similar, what I'd say, the one thing is they're compassionate and they have empathy towards my shortcomings. They are okay with my shortcomings, and they work hard to navigate around them to get me doing things really, really well. So that empathy and that compassion with others, I haven't had other leaders invested. I feel like they care about me. Truly feel they do. Not only, how I work, everything else, but my health, my mental health, my family, everything else. I feel like they're invested in me.
They truly care.
That's it.
And it's not just you, I'll bet, that you see them do that to the others that you're working with.
Everybody.
Saben, that's a nice compliment. And I don't know if you saw it coming or not, but what your thoughts on that? On what he said?
Yeah, I mean, Mark and Clay they're two of my biggest mentors. They are two of my closest friends. They've been there since day one for me, since, running tollway motorcycle pursuits, and they had to mute me in the back because I wouldn't shut up. I was so excited just to be there. It's, I think through life, you learn how important relationships are, no matter where they're created. And we're at work a lot. We spend Christmas together. We spend our birthdays together away from our families. We're time on the border together. Recently Mark and I flew back from the border at 3 a.m. after I just finished my nights. He was on days. I said, man, this is what we're going to miss one day.
Yeah.
Just that time, 3 a.m. coming back from Edinburgh, or we were Del Rio, I guess, that time. But that's what makes life good.
Yeah.
And so those are really important to me. Every one of my guys, I want work to be fun. There's enough stress in the world with wives and babies and the trauma of the job. Yeah. This shouldn't be one extra thing.
Yeah.
So,
Mark,
that's tough to follow. I learned early that in my highway, I was very fortunate. I didn't work before DPS. I mowed yards, and I went to college. And I graduated college a semester early so I could make the March 03 DPS Academy. So I never had a supervisor. I didn't learn leadership really before then. I do feel like it is learned. There's the natural leader. I'm not really on board with that term, but my first highway patrol sergeant, he really, and I think about him all the time when I'm making decisions, and he really taught me to find or recognize individuality in your employees and capitalize on what they're good at, and what they're not good at may not be worth a fight. You let it go and let them going in the direction that they excel at, and if that's part of your mission, then you just fuel that fire and keep them going. I'll be the first one to say Clay's delivery in every situation is not amazing. Now, his delivery is exactly what I want to deliver things, but I have learned that I cannot. and you deal with multiple generations of people now that are very different, and the counseling I could give Clay on exact same incident would probably be totally different on a guy that's 21 years old right now. And I would expect the same outcome and the same reaction, but I know Clay gonna handle it when I give it to him real and how it needs to be said. But the 21-year-old right now, it's gonna have to be a different delivery.
Yeah.
And when I was in the highway patrol, I didn't like stopping 18-wheelers. I couldn't find a pair of aspirin in a pharmacy when I'm searching vehicles. I mean, it just wasn't my thing. Yeah. I thought I had all the signs, and I'd search a car on the side of interstate for an hour, and nothing was there. But I was very good at DWI detection. DWIs were attracted to my black and white at 24/7 a day, and 24/7, and that was my thing. And back then, highway patrol was very stat driven. We didn't, we didn't have quotas, but you had to. You had to look like you were giving the department, 8 hours work a day.
That's your job. You expected that.
Yep. And my sergeant recognized that there was a lot of different guys in the office, and we're all pretty young. We're all good friends. We hung out off duty, but he recognized that there was a couple guys that liked stopping trucks, and there was a couple guys that loved interdiction. And DWIs just came to me so much, I'd carry the whole station. Numbers, and he allowed it, and it worked great for 4 years. And I'd never heard of any station doing that before. So when I say I refer back to my first highway patrol sergeant when I'm making decisions, that meant a lot to me, because he could have been like many other chain of commands around the state at that time and made our lives miserable.
Yes,
and told us, man, I expect 10 trucks this shift, or I expect you need to go find some dope this weekend. And it's not what all of us wanted to do. But the fact that he recognized the individuality and what we all excelled at, man, he was just I miss the days. I would not go back, but I miss every day of highway patrol and working under that sergeant.
Yeah.
So he was a big impact on my leadership ways today.
That was fantastic, and I see why you said that. Just from Saben and Mark answering that question, I see why you said that these are two favorites in leadership. And I'm reading your mind again because you're thinking about Clint Pulver right now. Isn't it funny how John and I can do that? Clint Pulver, who we just met at VAI for the first time in person. We had him on the podcast. He talked a lot about leadership, 2 episodes. They were fantastic episodes on leadership. And one of the things that both of these men just described is they both appreciate people. They love people. And they talked about mentorship. They both mentioned it. And those are 2 of the big themes with Clint. He says, if you don't love people, you're going to be a terrible leader, no matter what you're leading, whether you're leading soldiers into battle or DPS troopers or employees at the Gap. It doesn't matter. If you don't love people, you're going to have a problem. And that's one of his big emphasis. One of the big things that he emphasizes is that. And so you can see that. I know you were thinking it.
Yeah, it's so funny. As you're talking, you brought up something, and you reminded me of servant leadership is really what we're describing, and you guys is displaying exactly what Clint talks about. Episodes 230 and 231, for those that haven't listened, listen, because it's an amazing conversation. And I think you're right. They got the secret sauce here for leadership. So really cool hearing about that. This is talked about going down in some unintended rabbit holes early, and this is one. But leadership and mental health are 2 of the biggest topics we like to talk about. So thanks for talking with us on that. Take us back to your early interest as a kid. Let us know how you got into law enforcement, and then ultimately what drove you to go to aviation.
My stepdad was a 20-year officer for a local agency here in the Metroplex. And it's funny because we talk about it all the time, but he always told me, don't be a cop, go be a fireman. Everybody loves firemen. Everybody hates cops. So he heavily advocated for that. I actually went through fire EMT school and applied to Dallas Fire. And at the time, the process was like 8 months long. And kind of found out through the grapevine that you could apply and get in with Dallas PD much easier, shockingly enough, obviously. And then you could lateral over, kind of a little cheat code. So I was like, well, I'll just do that, throw my name in the hat over there. And, man, it only took about 4 or 5 months. And they called me on a Friday and said, can you start next Wednesday? And I was like, I'll be there. So that was in 2009, and got there to Dallas. But, funny story about my first day. So finally finished the academy. It's 8 months long. Walk into the briefing room. They assigned me, I'm probably 145 pounds at the time, 25 years old.
That's a stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. With all my gear on. And I walk into the briefing room, and I'm assigned to a guy whose nickname is Tiny. And he's easily 6'7", 6'8", and a very significant reputation for putting hands on people. And so the rule, is obviously all the rookies sit up front. And so I walk in, and typical 25-year-old me, and got, everything just looking sharp, looking nice, ready to go, excited. Walk in. I see him. Obviously, I know who he is. He doesn't look, doesn't look at me, doesn't care about me, nothing. So I just go sit down and go through briefing. I get up, kind of go back to him. He's still not looking up, doesn't care if I exist. And he just, without looking at me, he said, you got all your paperwork? I said, yes, sir. He said, okay. You got bullets in that gun? I said, yes, sir. He said, you got 2 pairs of handcuffs? I said, yes, sir. He said, are you ready? I said, yes, sir. He goes, you ain't ready. And I was like, all right, well, this is going to be fun. He goes, go get your stuff, put it in the car. We're going to get a Gatorade, and we're going to get it in a fight. I was like, fair enough. So we started driving around and just interacting with people. Everybody that was walking down the street, he was stopping them. Put your hands on the hood. Shake them down. And then it was like, that's wrong. Don't do that. That'll get you killed. Stop doing that. So what he was doing, he was really helping me survive out there. And, because I'm still doing the academy thing with one hand out, like the Heisman Trophy. Sir, step to me. He's like, what are you doing? So we did, and we did that first day, and within 2 hours I was in a foot chase, and I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but I was by myself for probably 5 minutes until help got there, and he came around. I was on the ground with the guy handcuffed, walking him back out, and he's smiling. He's like, all right, you might be all right. And oh yeah, I said, it sure took you a long time to get over here, so I had to go the long way around. He never got out of the car. So yeah, and I had to drag I was lost. I had to drag him back to a street sign. Hey, I'm here. Everybody's like, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? I don't know where I'm at. I just got in a squad car 2 hours ago. So that kicked off my Dallas PD career, and I never thought about being a fireman 1 second after that day. I mean, it was the best job in the world. Had a blast. It was, if we weren't pointing our guns at somebody, it was raining. And you know how that goes coming from L.A. and Clay knows coming from Garland. It's just the best job. Yeah. We had so much fun.
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, sole 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24-megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.
One crazy day, how life happens. I could, not to get too long-winded, but had a hit and run occur on my vehicle, had to drive to Alvarado to get it fixed, and I was going through there and got stopped by a trooper in an area I'd never been through before, never needed to go through before. And he was like, hey, are you happy where you're at? And at the time, they had talked about getting rid of our pension. It was kind of, going bankrupt for the city of Dallas. And I'd noticed some of the guys I really looked up to, been on there 5, 6, 7 years, real hard chargers. They were on so much paper, they could never leave. And in that interaction, I had a little bit of a spark, like maybe I need to do something different. So I said, at the end of the day, I'll just throw my name in the hat with DPS. It takes about 6 months. And then at the end of it, I'll make my decision. And at the end of it, I decided that it was a good change to make. Still single, no kids. And, got to Ellis County, had a blast. I mean, right back to doing what I was doing at DPD, just at a different learning curve on the highway. But was able to get into a lot of good stuff. And then got an email from Mark that was like, hey, any North Texas troopers interested in aircraft division, submit a memo. Basically, we don't have an FTE, full-time employee position, but we're going to kind of bootleg one off highway patrol. I was like, man, helicopters, bad guys, that sounds pretty cool. I'll throw my name in the hat on that deal. I assumed I was nowhere. I was like 3 weeks, what we call yellow paper. I wasn't even on probation yet. And I'll never forget where I was standing in my backyard, and Mark called me. Obviously, I didn't have his number, so I didn't know who he was. And, he's like, hey, Mark Tomerlin, I'm lieutenant up here, and saw your memo, and I think you need to come right out. I was like, okay. And all he keyed in on was Dallas PD, because Clay, being Garland PD, he recognized that if you got a little bit of that in your back pocket, you probably know how to catch bad guys. Man, I was there, and I went and did the tryouts, and was able to get the spot. And so for 9 months, I was kind of 2 weeks in the air, 2 weeks on the road. Then from there, he got me a full-time spot and was able to stay. So aircraft, flying, aviation, in my world, it's kind of crazy to say, has always just been a cheat code to catching bad guys. My passion's always been catching bad guys. So that's kind of the full story on all that.
It's pretty cool with, the evolution of all the mission systems that we have now, how it's making us even better at catching bad guys.
Yeah.
It does seem like a cheat code,
yeah.
When you open up a shot over or track a map overlay with the infrared camera systems and all the tools we have at our disposal. Yep, right there. I think you talk about it. in your class. I think you say something like it's like well, I'll let you say it because I'm going to mess it up.
No, it's just, today's sensors, I started back on a FLIR 2000. It was one of the first 2 LE FLIRs in the United States. Fort Worth got one, and we had one. The cameras now, regardless of the manufacturer, are phenomenal. And the sensors are phenomenal. So I always kind of say, if the ground guys do their job well, from an air crew perspective, Ray Charles could find the bad guy. That's not a lot of times what the difficult part is. The difficult part is the movement to contact piece, right? And this is the only job in law enforcement where we can verbally walk an officer to their death. And so we take that very serious. And it's been fun as a trainer because we don't have to work on digging as much for the bad guy. But we can focus on, that's him. You can tell it's an elbow and an arm and he's hiding. That's a person versus a blob. Now, how do we game this? And so that's how the business has changed. But Saben, on my Air Sports Canine class that I do, his videos, the feature of it, and he had been cut loose, with us a very short time and was involved in a use of force incident with officer-involved shooting, canine deployment with a shooting, very complex, multi-agency, multi-hour event in the city of Irving over between Dallas and Fort Worth. And he kills it. He absolutely kills it. And he's brand new TFO. So I show this, and I always say in the classes, this is like a 3-month TFO. And everyone's always amazed. They're like, wow, that was incredible, the management. Well, he worked in the worst part of Dallas there is, working street crime and understood officer safety, understood canine deployments, understood all that. And that's a big leg up when you come, especially to a duty station like Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, the cities where we have a lot of that stuff. Probably here in Dallas, 95% of our flights are not state support related. We're supporting our local, our county, our state, and some federal partners. That was it. It's just the camera's pretty good now. The game starts once we find them.
Yeah. Well, what you bring up, we talk about a lot too. The early days of a patrol officer's career, I think, are the most crucial part for the building of the later part of their career, because all the fundamental skills you learn that you just talked about, the officer safety tactics, all the things you do as a hard charger working in a busy area, all those skills come up later in life, especially as a TFO. So I love that you illustrated that well. And it kind of segues into the next question I was going to ask you, and maybe this is it. Looking at impactful incidents that you've been a part of, and I think I'm going to have to force your hand here and just say, now that he's previewed this case, can you talk about that case and what happened there?
Yeah, the part that Clay is leaving out on all that is I had a full Encyclopedia Britannica of Clay Lacey videos that the second I walked in the door, that's all I did. If I was sitting at the hangar, I was watching his videos, memorizing his verbiage. I would just, mental note cards. How did he navigate that? How does he navigate a felony stop? I mean, it's the simple stuff. Just so under that high stress, you go back to that index card. And it just allows you to effectively articulate in any situation. So whenever that hit, I immediately went back to one of his videos where he was managing a shooting like he's sitting on a couch. And I'm just like blown away. But back to Irving, so that was a home invasion robbery. It was a dope rip. Got 3 armed individuals through the front door, kicked the door, put everybody on the ground, do the duct tape. One of the people in the home is actually able to get to a closet unnoticed and is on with 911. Like, they're in here, putting out fully automatic weapons, which who knows if they were. Well, I don't think they were. One had like a drum mag on it, but you know how that stuff goes. So they're like, broken arrow, call everybody. Well, officers arrive and push them out of the house, out the back door. Last known point of contact was over the back fence. Standard neighborhood search. So we get on scene, maybe 30 minutes later. Very rarely at the time were we working with Irving, so this was kind of a new deal for us, kind of getting to know each other. As you know, kind of with us, we don't work direct with DPS a lot, so it's real hat in hand, like, hey, this is what I would do, adjusting perimeter, containment, looks good, okay, I'm with you. Canine teams moving, I'm going to stay a little bit ahead of you because we have multiple known armed bad guys. Was able to fairly quickly locate one laying face down, just basically right over the fence. He didn't make it to the next street due to containment. We coordinated, got K-9 to stop, hold, wait, take a breath. This is what I see. What do you see? Now let's make a plan together. All tactics Clay I'd seen him do 100 times. Once we both got on the same sheet of music with that, we were able to get him called out in custody. And then the rest of the search continues. But what I was fearful of was an ambush because, it was just dark alleys and dark yards, side yards, backyards, and a lot of tree cover. And so I kept reminding them that I can't see everything. I'm here, and I did get real lucky just now and tagged him pretty quick, but don't get overconfident in how fast you're moving.
Can you, real quick, if you can remember, how did you verbalize that statement over the air? That's a lot of information, and I'd imagine you put it out in a very succinct way.
Well, I'd have to watch it, Clay.
So the beauty of it is he finds number one and pauses X, right? Pauses everything, immediately gets the team that's closest to number one to safety because they were really close. They're danger close. Then evaluates the scene, has everyone hold, checks all the way around that subject to see if there's any more as best he can, and then again, doesn't tell anyone to do anything. Hey, what do you think about this? I'm not comfortable with you going in and putting your partner, your dog, in that situation with these people, and it reminds them supposedly armed with automatic weapons. What are your thoughts on positioning you over here and a team here, and we'll do a verbal call out on the PA, and if he runs, he runs. I'll stay with him. We chase to contain, right? We don't even have to get our hands on him again, and we'll go arrest him on our terms. And that's how he laid it out. And the K-9 handler's like, sounds fantastic. And they moved in and executed that plan with a compliant suspect, and then they moved to these other two.
Yeah, I believe at some point they initiated a phone ping, which pushed us 10, 11, 12 houses away. So it was outside of where I was detailing pretty significantly. And as I just happened to scan over it, I see a guy with both hands in his pocket, hunched over at whatever o'clock in the morning that was. It's not normal behavior. And I see him check left, right, center, and then he slowly backtracks back to his little corner. I'm like, ooh, this is my guy. And as we come around the next orbit, because he was able to get back under the eave of the house, so I didn't have him again, and then I came around the other side, it was just like a blob of a heat signature there. I couldn't totally tell if I had one or two, but after a few orbits, it looked like two, because they were just huddled up, knees to their chins, ankles crossed, as tight and as close as they could get, but with absolutely nothing else around them except the corner of the house. And it looked like, as we've talked before, like two scared kids. And that was my biggest lesson of this event. So re-coordinate everybody. All right, guys, I've got probably your remaining two here. I've got good targets. This is where we're at. I need everybody to kind of reconvene here. This is where we're going to, play the tactical chess game. Get everybody reset. We're going to contain this house. But also being mindful that I can't fully contain it in case we get in a gunfight. And that was something that I had learned from Clay, too, because I think early on you really just want to, let's put a fence around this dude where you can't get anywhere, versus I recognize that it's okay if they run. What I don't want is friendly fire to occur inadvertently. And that was something that was a piece of the puzzle with Irving. I was over the top with some of that, and they're like, come on, dude. Like, settle down. We're fine. We can stand over here, or we can park our car over here. But I think probably all of us gained some healthy respect for that after that incident. We probably shouldn't do that. Or if the helicopter says it, as Josh Kirby says, if Clay said to do 10 jumping jacks in the front yard of a house, we all did 10 jumping jacks. So he knew something we don't know. So, we re-coordinated, got everybody set over there, and then talked it out with K-9. Again, said, here's what we have. What do you want to do? He's like, I'll make an approach up the driveway, come around the right side. They were at the back left corner. They made their approach from the front right corner all around to the back side. And as they made that turn, I was putting out, hey, they're moving up front, because they heard the dog, they heard radio, they heard something. and it made them start coming around the left side of the house towards the front. Well, as they did that, one of them doubled back, pulls out a pistol, and they've released the dog, and he starts engaging towards the dog and then upwards towards officers, and then they were in a gunfight. As that occurred, the dog doubled back. We found him 2 or 3 blocks later, 30 minutes later. Bad guy is shot multiple times, but he is the 1%er that was not going to jail and was going to kill as many cops as he could before he died. And so he goes back around, kind of gets his bearings again, and then re-engages, coming back out, screaming profanities, what I got from the K9 team, and then he dies on a pistol with the slide lock back, just how he wanted to. And the other guy jumps the fence into the front, and as the gunfight's raging in the backyard, the 2 officers in the front left tried to converge on that bad guy, and he was able to get back in the neighbor's backyard with the gunfight raging through the fence beside him, and was able to run away, jump another fence, get underneath a porch on another residence, and hide out. And at that point, like, everything hit me. What in my mind, what I had just did. I just did that. I wanted to put out, like, immediately, like, hey guys, please let me know how everybody's doing, because at the time, obviously, my camera, my monitor, everything's focused on this runner. I had him, the one that was the shooter. I watched him go down, so I felt good about him. I let him go, but now I had this runner, and I couldn't focus on all the officers that had just gotten that engagement. So immediately tried to keep everybody calm, like, please sound off. How are your officers? I've got this guy. We're not going to worry about him right now. Everybody kind of check yourself. And then we were able to, everybody take a break. We actually were able to go, we had to refuel at some point. We came back, had a full SWAT team around the whole house, robot, everything, and elicited a response from that guy and got him out and got him in custody.
Wow.
So.
Jeez. Think about the emotions, how high those emotions were on the ground after that engagement. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, sole 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24 megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.
Whether your mission is saving lives or servicing high-value assets, Onboard Systems Hoist stays ready to assist. Features such as single-point payout reduce the potential for hoist-induced load swings, enhancing overall safety. For more information, go to hoist-winch.onboardsystems.com. Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors. Thank you for tuning into this special episode of the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast in partnership with Vertical Valor magazine. We've enjoyed sharing the stories of Texas DPS and the incredible work they do supporting public safety across the state. Our time with Texas DPS highlights the vital importance of strong leadership, positive unit culture, ongoing training, and effective internal marketing like detailed reports and video documentation that showcase achievements and secure critical funding for their aircraft operations. A huge thank you to our partners Airbus and Massif Flight Suits, as well as Sky Helicopters, and everyone else involved in the making of the Blades of Valor Tour.